Hello, students, and welcome to this lesson in our unit on claim evidence reasoning. Today's lesson is on ethos, pathos, and logos. Please understand, I have heard those words pronounced differently sometimes. This is not a word like hyperbole, where if you pronounce it hyperbole, you sound like a moron. You can pronounce these ethos or ethos, and most people won't tease you. I say ethos, pathos, logos because it sounds good to me. So let's go ahead and get started. So ethos, pathos, and logos came from a man named Aristotle. He was a Greek philosopher, very well known, and specifically, he is the one that is basically said to have created rhetoric, which is the art of speaking and writing persuasively. Most of your first introductory English classes in college will be called something like rhetoric and writing, and it literally just means the art of persuasion. Specifically, he wrote the book called On Rhetoric, which introduced the terms ethos, pathos, and logos. So the first one is ethos. You'll see down here that I have an image or two images. They are each of a celebrity that is advertising a product, right? So we have Taylor Swift here advertising Diet Coke. There's a little bit of writing here, but basically the main caption says, "Entertain in style with Taylor Swift." On the other side, we have former basketball player Shaquille O'Neal advertising Icy Hot. My question to you is, which one of these do you trust the most, right? Which one of these do you believe to sell you the product? There's a lot of different things to look at, but both of those are basically relying on this concept of ethos, which is character, being credible, right? So it's an appeal to an authority or credibility. In my personal opinion, the Shaquille O'Neal ad makes the most sense to me. It is the most credible because he was a professional basketball player. I imagine that he had a lot of sports injuries. So, yeah, if he's telling me that he uses the icy hot patch on his hurting back, I'm never going to have a back that hurts as much as Shaquille O'Neal's because I don't do that much work. But it could work on my pain too if it works on his. Now, the Diet Coke one, yes, if I'm talking about entertaining Taylor Swift, I'm sure she has parties. But the reason people drink Diet Coke is so that they don't, gain weight. Otherwise, you drink real Coke. And I don't think that she's thin because she drinks Diet Coke. I think she's thin because she eats healthy and she has a very active lifestyle. So to me, that one is less credible. They really just wanted a pretty celebrity to hawk their product. So one of the best examples for ethos is all of those advertisements that you see everywhere that say something like, "As a doctor, I can say this will improve health," or 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Colgate, right? They are citing an expert in the field to show you why you should go with this product. When you use ethos, there's a couple of things that you want to pay attention to. You want to openly remind your audience who you are and why you are qualified. You don't want them to have to guess your credentials. You want to tell them what your credentials are. And specifically why you have expertise in that field. So, for example, with the Taylor Swift one, it would have made a lot more sense to say something like, Taylor Swift has dinner parties every Friday night and she only serves Coke. Entertain in style, right? Because then not only do I know that she is a celebrity, but I know she's a celebrity that throws these entertaining dinner parties constantly. It gives her credibility where I don't think she necessarily has any. You want to use jargon and specialized terms to provide expertise. This word jargon literally means that it is language that is specific to a task, activity, job. There are certain words that I have never used because I don't work in that field. There are other words that I have only seen in relation to that field. And it isn't just professions. Obviously, like the medical profession has terms that are for medical professionals, but it's other little activities. For example, skateboarding has its own jargon. You refer to the deck, the trucks, that sort of thing. Whereas if you take the word truck outside of the context of skateboarding, it means something entirely different than when you are talking about a skateboard. So jargon is specialized language used for a task, a profession, a group of people. And when you're able to use that jargon, you are proving that you are a part of that community, which gives you credibility. Although I've never skateboarded, I watch a lot of YouTube, so that's what I know what the parts of a skateboard are called. And confidence is key here. It's that idea that, like, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So if you sound like you know what you're talking about, people are much more likely to believe you. That's in every walk of life, but specifically with Ethos, if you really sound like a professional, people will expect you to be a professional. The next one is Pathos. I offer you another Coke ad. Is there a theme here? I don't think so. Maybe I just had Coca-Cola on the brain. So Pathos, open a Coke, open happiness. They aren't telling you that Coke has any health benefits. It doesn't. It's bad for you. What they're telling you is that Coke will make you happy. They are directly appealing to your emotions. And that is what pathos is. It literally means suffering or experience. That's the literal definition of it. But what it is it's an appeal to emotions. They do not have to be negative emotions. A lot of students get hung up on this idea that pathos must be pain. Well, as the Coke ad shows you, happiness is an emotion, and pathos can tap in to happy emotions as well as pain and suffering. And so one of the examples that always comes up with pathos is anytime they're trying to warn grown adults not to do something, they know they probably won't listen. So they appeal to their desire to protect children, right? If you smoke, children will die of secondhand exposure. If you drink and drive, you could hit a family car that's carrying children. A lot of people aren't willing to do the right thing for themselves, but oh, think of the children, and people will do a lot of stuff. When you use pathos, there are a couple of things that you definitely want to be careful of. You need to use descriptive language and imagery. Pathos works because you are making a connection with your audience through their emotions. The easiest way to do that is to paint a picture in their head. Instead of saying, children will die from secondhand smoke, describe what it's like to not be able to breathe because you have asthma and go through, the way your chest tightens and it's almost like it burns when you draw the air in. So if you create a picture in the reader's mind, they will have a deeper connection to the emotion, which means that your pathos will be more effective. You want to identify the values and beliefs of your audience. If you're trying to connect to their emotions, you have to know what emotions they're experiencing. So, giving one argument to teenagers would not necessarily be the same argument that you would give to people in their 60s or 70s, right? They have different life experiences, therefore, they have different values, they have different beliefs, and you want to make sure you connect to who you are trying to reach. You want to also tell a personal story, make some sort of personal connection. If Ethos is saying that I'm the credible source, Pathos is saying I'm just like you, right? And you want to be careful of being overly dramatic. For example, this ad is a little bit old. It's the guy was in the show ER, which I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it, but it's a PETA ad. PETA ads are special. And it says, if you wouldn't wear your dog, please don't wear any fur. That's overly dramatic. In America, especially, I'm only really speaking for, my country. There is definitely a delineation in animals, right? You eat some animals and you don't eat other animals. Oftentimes it's decided by how cute they are. But the truth is that in America, there is a distinct difference made between pets and livestock. So to me, saying that like I would wear my dog is the equivalent of wearing, deer skin, it's overly dramatic. It's not the same thing. You don't want to do that. The reason is you immediately lose the audience. They won't believe anything you say if you say something that's way too over the top because you lost your credibility. You also want to make sure that you're paying attention to the difference between sympathy and empathy. So most people use these words interchangeably. They are very similar. The main difference is that empathy is deeper. Sympathy is being able to understand another person's position. You are able to look at it as an outsider and say, okay, I comprehend what has happened to you. Empathy is being able to share in those feelings. So you are able to connect with the person in a deeper, more emotional way. And so, therefore, instead of understanding their feelings, you feel the same feelings. When you're shooting for like really effective pathos, you want your audience to feel empathy. You want them to not only understand why you don't want them to wear fur, but you want them to also not want to wear fur. The next piece is logos. This is the most common one in modern advertising because humans now like science. They like facts. You've seen it everywhere. This idea that it's like prove it to me. So if you're going to say something to me like the Oral-B toothbrush is better than every other toothbrush, my first response to you is going to be prove it. Or are you just saying that, right? So when you're using logos, that's when you're proving it. And they would have a study that would prove that the Trizone removes up to 100% more plaque than an ordinary toothbrush. Pay attention always to these little like things they throw in because if you look at this from a little bit further back, you would think that the Trizone removes 100% more plaque, but it removes up to 100% more plaque. That means it can also remove quite a bit less. Logos literally means a word or reason, and this is an appeal to logic or reason. You are saying that you should trust me because this makes sense, right? And here's all the data I have to show you that this makes sense. And the examples are from, like I said, these kind of products, but also when they're trying to tell reasonable adults why they shouldn't do things like drink and drive or smoke, they'll also often come up with these statistics. So someone is injured every 120 seconds in the United States drunk driving incidents. Don't drink and drive, right? This is a logical reason why you shouldn't drink and drive because people get hurt. When you use logos, there's definitely a couple of things that you want to look out for. You want to use current research and statistics. There is nothing more pathetic than somebody telling you about, why you should do something and their statistics are from like 1995. Yeah, maybe that was true 25 years ago, but is it true today? Specifically, you want to stick to statistics within the last 5 years. If you're doing technology stuff, it even has to be more recent than that. The way that technology is so rapidly evolving, if your statistics are too old, they are absolutely inaccurate. So thinking about things like, technology involving cell phones, the internet, all of this new stuff out with cryptocurrency, all of that, if your statistics are more than a year or two old, they're probably inaccurate. You want to give convincing, solid evidence. You want to make sure that the evidence that you're choosing to support your position isn't something that anybody could walk up and say, well, what about this? All evidence will have holes in it that people can pick at, but you don't want to come out and start with evidence that's weak. You can start off with evidence that's very, very strong and then get a little weaker, but you must give convincing, solid evidence at the start. And you want to use logical processes. You want to make people have to think, almost as though they're turning English into a math problem. Things that will cause them to say, well, if this is true, and then if this is true, then that must be true. We call those syllogisms. If A is true and B is true, then C is true. It forces people to rationally go through the steps in their mind to decide if it makes sense. Your best kind of arsenal or armory for this is going to be if-then statements, because people have to analyze, if I do this, then will this happen? So if you drink and drive, comma, then people can get hurt, period. It's a logical statement. And people have trouble poking holes in arguments that are exceptionally logical in their process. When you're thinking about effective rhetoric, once again, remember that rhetoric is the art of persuading. There are some other tips and tricks for you. You want to ask yourself which type of appeal is most effective. So if I'm to ask you that question after going over ethos, pathos, and logos, which appeal do you think is the most effective? Well, the answer is you have to know your audience, right? Each appeal is geared toward a specific audience. If you're trying to reach children, pathos works the best because their logical processes aren't all working up to speed yet, but their emotions are really turned up. However, if you're trying to reach somebody in the scientific community, logos would probably be your best bet, or ethos if the credible source is somebody that they respect. So the most effective rhetoric, the most effective appeal is going to be the one that you tailor to your audience. When you're thinking about your assignments for this unit, your audience is your teacher who is grading it, unless your teacher says or gives you an audience. Oftentimes in an assignment, the teacher will say, okay, you guys are writing a letter to Principal Babineau asking why we can't have better food in the cafeteria. So your teacher will either give you an audience. If they don't, then you need to assume that your teacher is the audience, okay? And give me what I want, because I'm going to give you what you want, which is a passing grade in English class, right? Yay. Basically, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you some examples of an appeal. And you are going to say what the appeal is and how it's being used. So I have an example to help you out. The example is samurai knives, the professional choice. So there is definitely an appeal in there. They are trying to get you to buy these particular knives, and they are called samurai knives. So this appeal is using ethos. And the reason that I say that this appeal is using ethos is because they are saying that professionals use this knife. So they're relying on the credibility of professional chefs and saying if it's good enough for Gordon Ramsay, it's good enough for you. They're relying on the credibility of the professionals to get you to purchase this product. So on your notes, what you will do is I will reveal these. You will say what the appeal is and how they are using that appeal. Macaroni and cheese, just the way mom makes it. 4 out of 5 people choose Vitalease for pain relief. Dynamite security, we keep your family safe. If you want value for your money, buy King's All Soft toilet paper. Natural beauty makeup, because you deserve the best. Once you have that finished, go ahead and make sure that you submit this assignment if it was asked to be submitted. I hope that you guys have a lovely day.